Hopefully it works now. No data. Wonderful. We're off to a great start. Okay, no, now it says excellent connection. Maybe it was just delayed. Okay, so far YouTube isn't giving me any warnings like it did last time. I'll wait for people to filter in. Whoever comes back, because I have a feeling half the people that were in the audience decided, nah, I'm not gonna deal with this today. Alright, so far so good. Everything's staying green, except for Discord. Discord's in red.
I actually didn't get the notification for it now.
There's one viewer, apparently, so someone got the notification.
Yeah, I had to like manually go onto your channel and then get it on the stream. Now, I'll see how stable it is. If it's stable for like a minute or two, then I'll post it.
Yeah. So the 3 people in the audience, can you hear us? Or the one person in the audience. I guess they all left.
Yeah.
I don't even know if people can hear us. I don't know. It's weird because I have all green now. It looks like it's working fine. YouTube's not giving me any issues, and no one's there now.
I actually don't think I'll see if I'll post it. Let me see. I'll post it again. I'm not gonna ping anyone. I'm just gonna. I think people didn't get the notification because I didn't.
Weird.
But I'll post that in the Discord and see.
I guess we'll have a small crowd then tonight.
Probably like the most important stream topic in like
a
long
like
while,
the most important stream we've done in a while, and figures.
But that one time, I remember like I think it was like 2 years ago almost now, that when we had that stream with, it was like me, you, Adam, and Juggalo, I think, and we were streaming for like 3 hours and it was okay.
Yeah.
Like, no, but we were not talking about anything important at all. It's just like
sometimes it works fine for hours. Like you and I have one of our last streams, like it worked fine for like 2.5 hours without a single problem. And then there's times where it's like every 5 to 10 minutes, it's just like, nope, you're not streaming today, buddy. I guess this is just a feature of Nephystreams now. Like for 20 minutes we'll goof off, and then the internet connection will just crap out, and then we'll start for real after we finally get it to be fine.
Yeah. No, we were actually on topic though.
Yeah.
Before it crashed.
Yeah, we were mostly off topic before we only started for like 5 minutes before it crashed, so it's not like we got really far into it, I guess. So
no.
The only thing people will be missing in this stream is just me saying, Hyrule Warriors looks dumb, which I don't even think people care about my opinion on that. So if you guys are tuning into this stream but not the first 20-minute one where everything blew up, you're not really missing anything, I guess. Deox and I will go ahead and recap like the 3 to 5 minutes we started before it all died. Codeman says we should bring Wanker in again. I would like to have Wanker on again sometime. He's like in his own world though. He's really hard to get a hold of, and he just kind of randomly pops in and out of Discord at very random times. He's actually on last night.
But he is our resident like Undying Nephilim archaeologist.
Yeah. So. He's also probably the one guy who went full head into the symbolism stuff even more than I did. He showed me so much weird Kabbalah shit. But I don't know, guys in the chat, does everything sound fine? There's no buffering problems. You don't sound like a robot or anything.
Like I tend to restrain myself before going into the symbolism blah blah blah, because I know I sound like a crazy person. Like that.
I just go into it.
Like
right
if
away.
I talk about, yeah, like embodiment and archetype is like my favorite like topic, and I will disappear in that topic.
We'll try not to talk about it during the stream, or we won't talk about the subject.
No embodiments. We will embodiment good podcasters. That's what we'll. That's
So
the
anyway,
rule
should we
body.
talk about what Rudo embodies? She embodies the neener. Anyway.
So basically, I to recap.
Yeah, let's recap. I don't think we're
Yeah.
going to get any more viewers than we have. We lost half the viewers, as I predicted.
Yeah.
Anyway. Alright, so... Yeah, I guess we'll just start over. If you could not guess from the title, kind of rebooting and retconning everything again. And I guess I'll go into my reasoning, unless you want to add anything to that.
No, because I think retcon is such a negative, like it's such a negatively loaded term. I think the more appropriate is rewrite or like an actual rewrite.
Redraft.
Yeah, redraft. The thing is, and obviously you can go into it in more detail, but I think the best way to understand the old Hyrule Conquest / Hyrule Total War / Fallen Sage, whatever you want to call the entire like decade of creative endeavors. Yeah, because it did span such a long time. You would new and fresh stuff would always be added on top, while the old stuff was rotting and decaying at the bottom.
Yeah.
I think that's that was a problem for a long time. Not only for people coming in, you guys that haven't been here for a while, it's really confusing to get into. And I've actually talked to a few people in DMs on Discord, quite a bit, where they're extremely intimidated about getting into it, and they're very interested, but because they like, if you look around a bit, you can kind of tell that this is not something that was started last year, right?
Yeah, technically it's been around before 2011, but it's kind of been around since 2011, almost a decade now.
Yeah, and obviously that's really intimidating. If you're new to the project, that's very intimidating. And you go onto YouTube, you see the cinematics that span 2 game engines, and more than that if you count the really old stuff. Like, it's very intimidating to get into, and I think that, again, because it does span such a long amount of time, and like you said, yeah, it was, the early stuff was made with a person with a different, ideology and skill set. I think that's another important thing
Definitely
too.
a different skill set. I actually rediscovered like some of my oldest animations from like 2010 with like 12 frames a second at like really tiny resolution. It looked like an MS-DOS game from the 90s, like Myst or something. That was a trip to see again. Codeman says it's not a retcon, it's just a new cycle. Symbolically, you're right, Codeman.
Yeah.
From the symbolic framework, yeah, it's just a new cycle. But I guess I'll go into my reasoning. I said this in the stream before it died, but basically what I flirted with the idea of adding and changing things for quite a few months now. We even had like a stream a few months ago about adding like the Hylian Civil War, and we were brainstorming that. But I think what really finally convinced me to just be like, screw it, I'm just gonna kind of restart things, sort of, was I found new software that renders things better and faster. As a sample, I have that image of Princess Rudo in the thumbnail using new rendering software, and in order to get my models into that new rendering software, there's a lot of work I had to do. Like, I had to basically have to redo their skeletons from scratch and re-rig them. So I thought, you know what, I might as well touch up the models and make them look nicer as I redo their skeletons to get them into this new rendering software. And I can't just like port all my cinematics over, so I basically was gonna have to redo the cinematics anyway to render them in the new software. And I was like, you know what, this is gonna be a lot of work anyway, I might as well just go back and just redo things I don't like and kind of just restart.
Yeah.
So yeah, reboot.
Honestly, this was a long time coming. Like, I've known that you've been unsatisfied with the body for a long time.
Yeah.
So I it was a long time coming, and I think ultimately it's the better solution because first of all, you'll be more happy with it, right, in the long run, and
I mean, I really like the results of what I've done so far. Like, I think the Rudo render looks great, but I'll ask the audience's opinion. Do you guys like the little render of Rudo there? Does it look better than Hyrule Conquest as of a month ago? I guess I'll wait. There must be a little bit behind as usual, so I'll wait for some response. But yeah. So over the last few weeks, you and I have been going over different rough drafts and stuff because I kind of decided to make sure all the cosmology and stuff is in place.
From the beginning, right? From the beginning. That, like, yes. I think that's...
Which we still technically haven't finished that, I guess, and I've already started on some other things I shouldn't have started on yet, but...
No, I think the biggest issue with Hyrule Conquest before was, again, that you had a very different idea going into it back in the Total War days, right? You had a very different idea. You sort of had the rough skeleton there, but the details kind of were... They were so different to the point that it was noticeable. I think that's a better way to phrase it, right?
Yeah.
And I think, it makes sense. Like you said, it's almost been a decade. That's a lot of time, especially that, when you started, you were in your early 20s, right? It's like that's a huge amount of change.
Yeah, I'm now in the 30 zone.
Yeah.
A whole decade went by.
Yeah, and I've said this before, not everyone changes a lot in their 20s, but I'd say the majority do. Especially from their late teens, mid-20s.
I would say I had an ideological shift. My first real ideological shift is probably around like 2011, which that is when I started Hyrule Total War. And then my next ideological shift was probably around like 2015, which is coincidentally right around the time I started redoing all the models. And I wouldn't say I've had a huge ideological shift from 2015. It's more like it's more refined, I guess. So this redo doesn't really correspond with an ideological shift, but
it's something that I think was inevitable.
To answer Baby Booby Burger, I agree that it should focus on less characters as far as like in each section of the story. I'm not opposed to like a huge cast of characters though. Like I love Lord of the Rings, and that has arguably a cast of characters that's too big. However, your second point, don't add much symbolism. It's literally impossible to avoid it. It ends up in everything, whether you attempt it or not. It's a subconscious thing. There's no way to avoid it. It's just if you're aware of it, you can kind of steer the direction it goes in, I guess.
I think what would be the ultimate goal is that the story is good of like for a person coming in, they can enjoy the story without having to look too deep, right? Or have the right tools to understand all the mechanisms going behind the curtain. But if you are curious and you pull the curtain back, there should be something there, right? I think that's the ideal. I do think that's like a very ideal way of doing stories, like large stories where there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but it's not, you don't necessarily need that stuff to get enjoyment out of the narrative, right? I think that it's a very good. I think that is a good and approachable way to do it. And there's plenty of stories like that. You don't need to know all. Since you brought up Lord of the Rings, you don't need all the deep stuff to enjoy Lord of the Rings, right? You can read the trilogy, and it's a good trilogy. You don't need to read the Silmarillion and understand all of the deep lore to enjoy Lord of the Rings. It's very nice if you do, though. Like I personally think that the story becomes better if you do, but it's not required. And I think that's kind of what Tolkien...
I'm literally like 20 pages left in Fellowship of the Ring right now. I'm actually surprised how much from the Silmarillion is in that book. How much it references the Silmarillion.
there is a lot, but that's what yeah, that's my point, right? You don't need
Yeah.
that stuff to enjoy the Lord of the Rings, but it is nice if you've read it and looked into it. But it's
That
not
that
needed.
kind of
I
is
think.
related to some of the things I'm redoing because it's chronologically not going to start. I guess at the most ancient point, it's going to start with Link.
Yeah.
Your symbolism is Kabbalah and good versus evil copy paste. Nah, I don't. I don't really like Kabbalah that much. I would say yeah, there's good and evil. I would be very careful with the words good and evil though.
Really.
Um,
But yeah.
but I would say like the symbolic stuff is just the things that are in everything, like the concept of the cosmos is composed of heavenly and earthly components. Like there's no avoiding that. No matter how materialistic you are, that's in everything. You can't avoid it. It's just a matter of putting that framework around your your point of view, I guess.
Yeah.
I said it once
It's
with the Kabbalah.
also.
No, I said earlier in this stream that Wind Waker introduced me to a lot of stuff in the Kabbalah. I don't I that's all I've said about the Kabbalah. I don't think I've ever talked about the Kabbalah on a live stream before.
There are particular members in the community that are well versed in the Kabbalah.
The Kabbalah is wow. It's pretty crazy. It's very interesting. It's like Jewish Gnosticism basically. I mean that's an oversimplification, but it's fun to look at some of the Kabbalah stuff and the Sephirot or Sephiro, however the hell it's pronounced. I mean, I see the patterns in it. I'm like, yeah, this is just another version of the cosmic patterns, but whatever. We're going on a tangent now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go into Kabbalah. I want to stay on topic, I guess.
So I think I think like I said, I always think that a rewrite or a reboot was like inevitable, and I think that your desire to changing stuff and adding stuff was like a kind of like it was a big tell, right? That you were unsatisfied with the larger body of the story.
Yeah.
And
A few months ago, I was upset about the Oka. I'm like, man, I think I'm gonna change their designs whenever I update the cinematics. Like it's just been gnawing at me for. And again, if you guys have listened to some of the other live streams, we've talked about adding and changing things. So I just felt like going full force. Because with my new rendering software, I'm gonna have to redo a lot of stuff anyway to make it look nice. So
like I think when an artist feels compelled to always change details and add stuff, it's usually a tell that they're unsatisfied with the larger work or the body of the work. That's like obviously it's natural for someone to add stuff and change small things. Like plenty of people do that, but when you constantly do it, it's generally a symptom of being unsatisfied with the larger body, which is not healthy because then you keep annoyed. Like you're annoyed that you add stuff, but then or change stuff, but then you're annoyed that you have to do that, right? Because there's no win-win situation because you know that it's awkward. It creates a situation of awkwardness within the narrative, but you still feel compelled to change things because you're not satisfied with the previous iteration of it.
yeah.
So it's a lose-lose situation. Like if you do not if it's gotten to that point where you feel compelled to retcon, if you choose not to retcon, it will bother you to the point that it makes you frustrated. But if you do ultimately go with the retcon, it will bother everyone else, and it will also bother you because you know it's a retcon. Yeah, it's a terrible situation to be in.
I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. I guess it's still kind of a little bit off topic, but Baby Booby Burger, I kind of like that name for some reason. Said don't copy earthly historical ideas and symbols. Rather create your own symbolism or something simple. Or, well, I guess my answer to that is no matter where you are in the world, a mountain is a mountain. There's like no way to come up with something original or like something out of the aether with a mountain is a hierarchy. That's what symbolically what it represents. There's like no way to really change that without fundamentally altering the laws of the universe, which, I don't know, maybe somewhere out in the universe mountains work differently. Like, what I'm trying to get at is like, symbolism's cosmic. There's no way to like escape it. And for some reason, in the last like 300 to 400 years,
I've said this before,
like
oh,
like, did I disconnect?
works.
Oh crap,
even
we're
works.
Disconnecting.
No.
No. All right, chat. Can you still hear us, or is it disconnecting?
It's because they started going on about you took the bait.
Yeah, I took the bait. I started talking about the symbols, and now the principals are punishing me.
Yeah, you took the bait.
Alright, well, no one's responding, so they're probably... Oh, no, they're saying nothing's wrong. They can hear me fine. Alright, well, YouTube just freaked out for a second there. And was like, oh, we're gonna disconnect, but apparently we're fine.
Yeah, but honestly, whatever or not you can invent new symbolism within the body of work is like a huge discussion of its own. And honestly, I don't think you will ever find... You will never get to that point where everyone agrees, because I know people will, they will defend the fact that you can do that. I personally don't think you can. I think that you can always give it a new skin, but
yeah, exactly. You can give it a new skin. Like Link, well, actually, Link borrows a lot of symbols from a bunch of historical things. King Arthur, Peter Pan, elves. Yeah, there's there's no avoiding that.
Like some of the most creative, I think.
Ooh, Twilight Princess symbolism was alien and new. Look into stories of the Nephilims and the Jotuns and the Fomorians, and you will see a lot of Tweely stuff.
The Tweely are like an archetype of outcasts. The outcasts.
They are the exiles from the margin in terms of symbolism. And
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we definitely are going really far off topic.
I'm not gonna dismiss anything, but generally in my experience when looking through fiction, is generally it's not that it's unique, it's more that I am unfamiliar of what they pulled that inspired that work, or what was on a conscious and subconscious level. Like if I'm not aware, like if you're not aware about like King Arthur, you will have a hard time seeing Arthurian archetypes, right? That's the same thing. Like if you're not aware of certain symbols, you will not always recognize those symbols, even though they're still there. Though there's another side to that. Like if you're hyper aware of symbols, you will also start seeing symbols everywhere. So it goes both ways.
Yep. It's a little bit unnerving when all those connections are finally made. I remember when it was finally pointed out to me, and for like 2 weeks, I was just kind of like in a daze. It was kind of like an overload. Like, oh my god, all the stories are connected. It's kind of unnerving when it like finally clicks and you just see it in everything.
Yeah, but it's a huge tangent. We've discussed it before, but yeah, it's not really the topic. But
yes.
I think that even if with the rewrite, I think the kind of vision that you've had the vision for the story for the past at least couple of years, it's not going to change, right? So
no, I would say quite a few things are staying the same. Like Fallen Sage is still happening. I think the main thing that's changing is where the story starts. Originally, it started literally like way at the beginning, like well, I guess technically not at the beginning, but it started with King Gustav slaying Sulcaris, and then you kind of worked your way through the narrative almost like a historical document. But I don't think I'm really interested in. I don't think I'm really interested in portraying it as a historical document. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
No, I agree. You kind of want to.
I kind of want to capture that kind of mythical feeling that I think has just been lost, even in canon Zelda. I mean, still kind of there in the canonical Zelda games, but there's very much like a materialist aesthetic that is progressively building up in the canon games that I think will eventually push that mythic kind of feeling away, and I really want to recapture that. I don't know if I can pull it off, but I'm gonna try. That's for sure.
I saw someone ask like, what is going to change? That is an incredibly difficult question.
Everything and nothing.
Yeah,
I know that's a very unhelpful answer. I guess we could try and be a little more specific.
Yeah, I think it's it's a very difficult question to ask, and honestly, I feel it's kind of a bit too early to give a definitive answer.
Yeah, Deox and I are still working things out. In fact, that's kind of what we were going to do this stream for. Him and I were just going to brainstorm, and the audience can maybe kind of participate in it, or throw in some of their ideas, or be like, nah, that idea doesn't sound good, or that sort of thing.
I think we could, before we go into that though, I think we should, because I know someone were concerned about the game, like the actual gameplay, and how that is going to be impacted, and I think that's something that we could talk about for a bit. Like,
I mean, I don't really see the physical gameplay changing, although Princess Zelda's probably going to be a freaking sorcerer instead of chopping people up. I mean, she'll probably have a sword, but
like basically the gameplay is staying the same for the most part.
Yeah. One other thing that's, I guess, I guess it's not really changing, because in the old kind of Nephi canon, when we first see Link, he is a kid, so I guess we do. I was gonna say everyone's younger, but that's actually not true now that I think about it.
Yeah. I mean, the factions in the game, like in Skirmish, were never accurate necessarily in a sense that, like, they are a representation of the faction in the story, right? I think we touched upon this in the past. Like, they don't necessarily fit every timeline or like the chronology of everything and stuff. It's just kind of like an abstract representation of the faction that is duking it out. Because you're going to go completely insane if you try to do that. It's like, oh yeah, if you play this faction versus this faction, you need to age up the heroes.
Nope.
It's like, okay, yeah, exactly right. You can't do that.
No, the heroes in each faction they don't necessarily exist in the exact same time. Although I think most of them do now. Now that we've talked about warping the time around a little bit, I'm trying to think if there's a character that, because I actually don't know if Rutella's gonna die at the same time she did before now, so she might actually be around the same time as her son. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, Odysseus says that you better not reboot the Highlands. I will never forgive you.
Who says that?
Odysseus.
Well, I'm not rebooting their gameplay if that's what he means, because I think that's Odysseus's field that he's interested in. The Nohansons probably aren't in power anymore, though I guess that would be something different. So they might not be the main house that spawns when you train troops like they are now.
Yeah.
So I'm tempted
those
to just...
are numbers you can tweak though, right? Quite easily, so...
Yeah.
Like that's something you can tweak.
I'm tempted to just start brainstorming. Like, I don't want the audience to become lost, but I'm honestly kind of just thinking of just brainstorming from where we left off, and hopefully the audience doesn't get lost, because I don't know if I can even remember exactly how we went through everything. And I was just gonna ask Debon, what should I kill him off as fast as I originally did, or keep him around for a while?
I think you should, if you wanted to keep him around, and you think, if you think that his role in the story, like, there's more story to tell there, then I don't see why not.
I really do. In fact, one thing I was discussing with some other people is during the Fallen Sage part, instead of Laneru, it's the Dominion Zora, which geographically makes more sense, because when Sulcaris returns with the Goma, they come from the Kokiri Forest, and what's immediately north of the Kokiri Forest, the Zora Dominion. Yeah, I was thinking of the library being there, and that's where Malkabaji is.
It's funny, you probably don't remember this. I actually told you, I asked you about this like 3 years ago, and I said, why isn't the library in the Dominion?
No, I don't remember you asking that.
Yeah, I asked you that like ages ago, and you were like, oh, it should be in Lenaru. And I was like, yeah, but the Dominion makes more sense.
Yeah,
It's like the
no,
high
I
Zora.
think the thing is, I kind of want to save the Dominion for the River Zora, but I think that'll be Laneru. I think that's when Rutella. I think Rutella will get wiped out by Orin. I think Debon might be killed by Sulcaris, or I don't know. Maybe he'll survive. I don't know. I know we're kind of, but if I do that, we're kind of losing a bit between Rudo and Darunia that I actually really liked, but yeah.
Yeah, sacrifices has to be made.
Yeah, no, I kind of like a lot of the new ideas I have for Rudo, though. I like the idea that her. The one thing I like about Rudo, even in old Nephi canon and new Nephi canon, is she probably has one of the most. She has like the most tragic things happen to her in Nephi canon. All of the shit happens to her, but she's always like positive. She's like,
Yeah.
I mean, she's clearly upset at some points, but she tries to stay positive. I kind of like people like that. And it's in the reworks Nephi canon that we're working on, even more shit happens to poor Rudo, but you know, she's gonna stay positive through the whole thing. But her father's gonna ruin her life.
It's something that I always kind of I accepted it, but I didn't necessarily like. I always thought the Dominion in the old Nephi canon wasn't as big of a deal as it should have been, if that makes sense. I do like that Lenaru is powerful, right? I don't think that's a problem, but I do think that first of all, the Dominion is super old.
Yeah,
like it's very old.
It's much older than I mean, I think Laneru at the time of where the game is going to start is still technically the Dominion.
Yes,
Debon is kind of he's a duke. He's just kind of, you know, he's a duke under Debon, and you know he supplies land and soldiers and taxes or whatever to Debon. But Laneru is not considered Laneru until the Fallen Sage, when the divorce happens between Rudo's parents.
Yeah, I always liked, like I still like Lenaru, but I always thought that it was like the Dominion should be the center of Zora power in Hyrule.
Yeah,
it is. So that's something that I always bothered, but I kind of just accepted it. I was like, I do kind of wish that it was, you know, more relevant, and it kind of. You know, back when we had the last brainstorming session, we were talking about how Rallis wanted to restore the Dominion, which obviously implied that there was a desire to bring it back, right? Because, yeah, it was destroyed way too soon.
Yeah. Well, based on the way you've responded to me, I think I'm probably going to go in that direction then. And the Fallen Sage Laneru will be after. It'll mostly be the Dominion Zora that, are under siege by Sulcaris. Although I kind of liked the mirror between Saria and Rallis, how his mother was killed by Sulcaris, and then Saria's father was, well, technically killed by Maidon the Goma, not the particular of Sulcaris. I mean, we can argue principalities as to who killed the Green Deku Tree, but I kind of like that mirror between Saria and Rallis. That's kind of not going to be there now if I do go with this change. So
I mean,
There's a few things that are gonna get lost in the transition that I'm a little bit upset about that I did really like, but I don't know. I'll have to. Yeah. Anyway.
I think the largest kind of thing that we've discussed is the timeline, like the condensed and like just time in general. I think that's the largest. It has the biggest ramifications long term, I think. And it's also a natural place to start, like we talked about, just like condensing the entire timeline.
Yeah. Hold that thought for just a second. I'm seeing people asking the same thing over and over, and I'll just address it. They're asking what I thought of the new Hyrule Warriors game. I kind of answered that in the old 20-minute stream before this, where the internet died. But long story short, I'm not interested. So that's my opinion. But I guess we will talk about it's not really condensed, is it? It's actually kind of expanded. I think the other night you were like, "Fuck it, 2,000 years or something," or am I misremembering?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Well, it's a little ambiguous, actually. The time.
Yeah, no, the idea was that you kept, telling me that you wanted this imagery of, the mystical Princess Zelda of legend, resurfacing in the world. And I was thinking about the idea for a bit, and I was like, you know what? It's actually, I kind of like that idea.
I like the idea of the world has been mundane for uncountable years, and then something magical just kind of resurfaces from seemingly nowhere, and in this case it'd be Link and Zelda. There's this freaking. I mean, they're Aghanim's a sorcerer, so it's not like the world isn't full of freaking wizards and stuff, but like a living legend, like just this legend exists, huh? And now it's alive in the world again. For the audience, because they might be lost. Basically, the main premise that I guess is kind of changing is Princess Zelda, the Zeldas in the Hansen dynasty, in the context of Hyrule Conquest, are literally going to be a legend. No one knows if they exist. They've been gone for thousands of years, whatever. And then Link basically stumbles upon Princess Zelda, who's been, I guess, asleep for who knows how long, like thousands of years or several thousand. Yeah. The exact span of time is never going to be specified because quantifying it would kind of ruin it. But Link accidentally stumbles on this legendary person that is a myth, and then you find out history's been fucked with by Aghanim, and you have to. The game is working to expose him and kind of dethrone him and bring Zelda back to the throne. That's a very short kind of synopsis, I guess, of where Hyrule Conquest is going to kind of start.
Yeah, so as someone pointed out, it echoes Zelda 2.
Sort of. I feel like some of the future plans we have echoes Zelda 2 a little bit more with their daughter.
Yeah, I don't mind. Zelda 2 is my favorite Zelda game, so I don't mind.
Because it's not like she's sleeping on a slab. She's actually imprisoned. Yeah, I guess functionally it's like sleeping, but symbolically sleeping is death, so it's all death.
Yeah, it's... Materially, it's like stasis, right?
Basically, Princess Zelda comes back from after being gone from the world for potentially, several thousand years. No one knows the exact time. Even Rauru, who was alive in the time, he's so old he doesn't know. Like, time is blurred to him. He just feels he's basically been in limbo for countless ages. And then like this miracle happens, and Rauru kind of like snaps out of it. And he's like, oh my god, like Zelda's alive! Holy crap! Praise Nehru. So kind of the theme is like this world is kind of like stagnant and dead, and then just this magical thing just comes from the forest and kind of like rejuvenates this world that's kind of been like just I can't I'm trying to find, I don't want to say sterile, but like not even stasis, but like it's, Aghanim's kind of molded the world in a particular way, and things are kind of just, I guess, mundane, maybe? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like that, mundane. I think that her, because it's like I think the world is sort of in a stasis symbolically, because Aghanim kind of interrupted the flow of things, right, by doing that. Like something's like there was like a certain chain of events were meant to happen and they didn't, so the world is on pause in a way.
Yeah, which kind of addresses some of the questions people are asking, like who imprisons Princess Zelda. The answer is Aghanim. Basically, Aghanim framed her parents, caused a coup, and then used it to destroy all of his political Sheikah enemies. And he's basically been a god king for ages. He's kind of like worshipped as kind of like Hylia, I guess. So he's like a little patron deity almost that's just been sitting on the throne immortal for who knows how long. And people are just kind of used to him. Like, they just accept Aghanim as like a fact of life. And then here comes Princess Zelda, and she's like, yeah, this guy like murdered my parents and took over the throne and like brainwashes people, and yeah, we need to get rid of him. And the funny thing is, we talked about this, and I've talked about it with some other people, is despite Aghanim's kind of seedy rise to the throne and the fact that the world has kind of become mundane, he's kept the peace. Like, everything's kind of fine in the world, even though he's in power. Like, you know, people have food in their bellies, everything's kind of stable. He's kept the kingdom stable for who knows how long. So dethroning him and putting Zelda on the throne, despite the fact that you could argue that's the morally correct thing to do, it actually ends up causing a civil war that tears Hyrule apart. Because if you think about it, here's Aghanim. He's like this god king. He provides the stable hierarchy that everyone's under. And then you remove him, and you put this little girl on the throne who no one knows. No one's even sure if it's actually Princess Zelda. All the lords of Hyrule are going to be like, no, I'm going to like try and take the throne. Like, I'm not going to let this kid just come out of nowhere take the throne. Or the ones that do buy into it, you know, will try to marry her so they can marry into the throne. So of course, removing Aghanim is going to create like a power vacuum that Princess Zelda can't fill. So also, I think that's a much better lead into a giant Hylian civil war than some of the original plans we had.
It's also fucking up, like, you know, right after Solcaris resurfaces, you know, it's kind of a bad timing, I guess.
Yeah, it really, I really do like the idea that despite Aghanim, I guess, morally being in the wrong, he actually, like, because stability and peace isn't necessarily a good thing. It can be, but no. not necessarily. I know in like the modern world we're like so afraid of conflict and stuff, and I'm not saying like I'm a warmonger or anything, but like I don't know. I find it I find it interesting that they remove Aghanim and they put Princess Zelda on the throne, and it makes things worse.
Yeah,
that's probably what would happen.
So yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, it makes sense. Like, if they've been under him for, you know, X amount of time. It's another aspect of it is that this world is also alien to Zelda, right? She's been gone for so long. She's a kind of foreigner on it. Yes, she is a foreigner.
She is a foreigner. Like, I mean, she is, but she isn't.
Yeah, it's like this weird. No, but it's the same thing. Like, if you pulled a British, let's say, like an Anglo-Saxon person, and dropped them into London today, they functionally are foreign, right?
Yep.
They functionally are foreign.
Yeah. But another thing about the change I like is now Link and Zelda both mirror each other. They're both something that was lost in the past that is kind of like just resurfaced. In the old Nephi canon, it was basically just Link. You know, he's a Gustav that's hasn't really been like the whole Gustav line hasn't participated in the world, yada yada yada. That's in the new Nephi canon too. Now, I mean, you could argue in the old Nephi canon, Zelda was basically like a return of Hylia, but now she mirrors Link now in a more obvious way, I guess, where her line, the Nohansons have been gone. Although I'm tempted to have Aghanim be a marry into the Nohansons, not literally be a Nohanson, but I'm tempted to have him, like, the Nohanson name still exists, it's just under him. Aghanim Nohanson. Which, now that I think about it, that's messed up. He killed his daughter.
I think, I mean, if we keep the fact that he did marry Marala, right? Then
I think I'm gonna keep that.
I think you should, and that would actually make him a Nohanson by marriage as well.
Yeah, I think he's gonna. So the Nohanson name does still exist, in the. I was thinking of making the Nohansa name like a myth, like Malin's in the dialogue. I showed people like Malin's like I've never heard of the Nohansons, but I don't think that's. I think the Nohansa name will still exist. It's just under Aghanim.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the game basically will start with Link working for the Lanthas on Lon Lon Ranch. And they're doing a little prospecting in the Kokiri Forest, and he hires the Kokiri to guide him through the Lost Woods, and the Kokiri that helps him is Mido, who I've decided will basically be his sidekick.
Which is funny.
It's kind of I've one thing I've always struggled with for years, since like 2006, I've never felt like I've never known what to do with Mido. I always felt like I was just forced to use Mido. I think making him like a YouTube is saying we have connection issues now, so I should probably wait a minute. Yeah, people are even saying there's buffers. Let's wait a minute, make sure it doesn't disconnect. It's potatoing. No. Oh, we'll wait a second, because YouTube's not giving me any errors. It was doing the little circle thing, but it's not giving me errors saying it's going to disconnect. Oh, now it's giving me errors. Now it says YouTube's going to disconnect. Damn it. We made it 46 minutes that time. And look how big our audience is, too. This is the largest audience we've ever had.
I mean,
it was in the 40s a few minutes ago.
Yeah,
okay, well they can hear us again. So
yeah,
they can hear us again. So I guess we'll continue.
Mido sidekick.
Yeah, Mido is gonna kind of be like Link's sidekick, and he's kind of he's still gonna end up being a filthy traitor. He's gonna end up betraying everyone and doing what he did in the Fallen Sage and killing the Deku Tree. But until then, he's basically Link's sidekick, kind of like I don't want to say like Jar Jar Binks, but he's kind of like a screw up that no one really likes, and everyone's kind of mean to him except for Link. Oddly enough, I don't think Link's gonna be mean to him.
No.
But basically, yeah, they're prospecting the Lost Woods, and Link gets lost in the Lost Woods despite having a guide, and he stumbles on without going into too much detail, he stumbles on Princess Zelda, who has been lost in the Lost Woods, imprisoned for countless years, and just like a klutzy fool just accidentally frees her. It is like, what's happening? I think I don't know if you've read it, but actually I kind of like that particular scene when he stumbles on Zelda. I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. I'm not really satisfied with the script for that particular level in general, but that particular part I was kind of happy with. And of course I managed to slip in, "Excuse me, princess." Excuse me, princess. Anyway, that's kind of where things start, and then
I think it actually kind of really fits with the discussion that we had about what Ocarina of Time did really well.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That's why I started in the Lost Woods, like that conversation we had a few months ago about Ocarina of Time. Yeah.
It's like to get everyone on the same page. Me and Neff, we were just discussing like what is it about certain areas in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask that gives this really Zelda feeling, right? I think also the Tarn Woods also kind of capture that. And we kind of concluded there's something about how those older games did forests. It has a very weird vibe and energy to it that I don't think the newer games have captured as well. There are points that I feel it has, it has kind of captured the same feeling. But but without going into much detail, and that's pretty much what we discussed. And it's like funny, Link discovering this kind of legendary princess in its
precious treasure in the forest. That sounds like I guess I'm objectifying Zelda. That's not what I mean, but like this lost thing that will basically like rejuvenate the world. I mean, there's obviously going to be growing pains. There's going to be a civil war, and it's gonna people are gonna die, but she basically kind of like rejuvenates this world, which of course it comes from the forest. You can't escape the symbolism. It wouldn't make sense if she came out of a volcano.
Yeah, it's also because a forest is a very good it's a very good stage for something that's ancient and kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
Because you have the entire kind of reclaimed by nature imagery there.
Yes.
That kind of really. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like when you stumble upon the forest temple in Ocarina of Time for the first time, like there's this kind of very good sense of like age that that dungeon portrays that I really like. And you do find it
everywhere in Ocarina of Time is like that. Not even just the Forest Temple, but I know what you mean, and I would say it's probably the strongest, like the Forest Temple, like, or just the Lost Woods in general, in that game.
The forest area in general. I think Zelda's kind of always done forests quite well, which is funny. I think they've always kind of pulled it off. I think the graphics did enhance that feeling though, quite a bit. Ironically, like the primitive graphics really enhanced that kind of mystical feeling.
The thing, also another thing, and I don't think it was intentional by the people that made that game. I think it was something that the N64 does to a lot of games on the N64. Is there's a very uncomfortable and like spooky atmosphere to a lot of N64 games, and Ocarina of Time and especially Majora's Mask are like a good example of that. Like, there's a lot of one of my favorite examples is I don't know if people are familiar with it, but the Star Fox Adventures game was originally on the N64. It was originally called Dinosaur Planet. It wasn't a Star Fox game, but if you look at like footage of it when it was on the N64, for some reason visually it just looks darker and feels spookier, but if you look at it side by side with the GameCube version of the game, like the geometry and the textures of like the levels are the same. Something about the lighting just doesn't. It just makes it feel different than it does in the N64. And then I looked at other games that had like ports from the N64 to different systems and stuff. Like one of my favorite games of all time is Battlezone 98. There's a PC version and there's a version on the N64. And for some reason, the N64 version, Battlezone 98, just looks darker and feels spookier. There's something about the Nintendo 64 hardware that makes games just feel spooky. I can't explain it. But I noticed it. It's something about the hardware, and Ocarina of Time, like, I don't know, Ocarina of Time has it in spades.
That's why I told you. Remember, I told you that my like actual best like Zelda related experience lately was playing the Missing Link on the N64.
Oh yeah, that ROM hack.
Yeah, because I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's very short, and it's not perfect, but it's really, really, really good. And actually, I had like. I'm not a very, very nostalgic person, so I always assumed that maybe the reason I had, the Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask had this kind of weird, like, atmosphere was maybe, like, nostalgia. But I actually had that experience again, playing through that ROM hack.
I think really, it's the N64 hardware, just, it does something to the games on it that just make them have this atmosphere that I personally like. It's hard to articulate, but it's like the hardware of the N64 like forces like the draw distance to be like just the right length and like the fog to be just the right thickness and the colors the right desaturation. It like forces things to look a certain way that just hits all the right psychological ticks, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So going back to the forest, I think, and Link, I think that's like awesome to just scene or the stage for that discovery. Just perfect.
Yeah, I've told it to you and other people before. Like, one of the oldest ideas, like back when I was a kid, like when I first played Ocarina of Time, and I was like a 8-year-old kid and I drew doodles of Zelda stuff as a kid. One of the oldest things, like one of the oldest ideas I had was like Link like found Zelda like just in a temple, or I think I usually portrayed as the Temple of Time when I was a kid. Like, he just finds her like imprisoned in a temple and she's been gone for like thousands of years or something, and I found the princess hiding here for what, like, I don't know. As a kid, it's probably dumber because I was a kid, but like that idea's always been there, and you have hints of it even in the old Nephi canon, like. But I don't know why I like just didn't go through with it, like when I made the Fallen Sage RPG all those years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So it's kind of like a really old idea I just dug up from when I was from like what 25 years ago now. How old is Ocarina of Time? Like 23 years? 24? It's old now.
Yeah, it's pretty old.
It's over 20 years.
Like,
I know that.
Yeah, it's like, didn't they come in 1998?
98.
So it's like 22.
98.
I think it is.
And I think I got it in 99. I think it was the summer of 99 that I got Ocarina of Time. My father bought an N64, and he got Super Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. He's like, hey, you gotta check out the N64, it's cool. And I was a kid, and I'm like, I don't want to play the N64. Those games look dumb. And then I played Super Mario 64. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then the next day, I popped in Ocarina of Time, and I was like, whoa. It was like nothing I'd seen before.
It's funny because I actually didn't like Ocarina of Time when I got it. I've said this before. I was like, this is not Zelda, because I played A Link to the Past.
Ocarina of Time was a game that completely blindsided me as a kid. Like, I'd never heard of it. I think I've talked about this in a live stream before. Like, I'd never heard of Zelda before that. Like, I don't even think I'd heard of Mario. Like, somehow I went through the 90s without... The only Nintendo thing I heard of in the 90s was Pokemon, because it was just so huge. Like,
yeah.
When I was in middle school, like, everyone was into Pokemon. But I didn't even know that was, like, a Nintendo thing. Like, I did not know that Pokemon was a Nintendo thing until Smash Brothers came out. And I'm like, Pikachu's in the same game as Link? I didn't know that Pokemon was... I must have been a dumb kid and not notice this stuff. Like, it was like a surprise to me that like Pikachu and Link were in the same game. Like, I didn't know they were made by the same people. That's so cool. And now I hate both of them. I'm just kidding.
So yeah, it was November of 1998 Ocarina of Time came out.
Let me double check.
I remember...
I'm pretty sure Ocarina of Time was 98. Unless, maybe it was released... I don't know if the Whiskey Whiskers is in Europe like you are. Maybe in Europe it released in 99. Because I know a lot of Japanese games in the 90s like came out much later in the United States and Europe. Like, speaking of Pokemon, I had the first Pokemon Coliseum like 2 years before it released in America.
I know it was 98 because I remember because I got it for Christmas in 98.
Yeah,
like,
November 21st, 1998. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know for certain I got it in the summer of 1999, because I got it right when I moved to... My family had moved to a farm, actually. And it was that summer that my father had gotten an N64, and that's... Yeah, so it was the summer of 99 when I played it.
Yeah, because I didn't get it for Christmas. My brother did, and I remember playing it around that time.
So yeah, 22 years, 21 and a half years about for me. That's an old idea I've had.
Yeah.
I remember I did get Majora's Mask for my birthday in 2000. And I remember, like you said, you didn't like Ocarina of Time. I hated Majora's Mask when I first fired it up. I'm like, this game is hard. I don't like it. And then I kind of returned to it later and was like, oh, I think I misjudged this game. I think oh, go on, sorry.
No, I think I remember a lot of people didn't like Majora's Mask initially, because at least in my friend group, because we couldn't figure out how to get out of the first 3 days. Because it's kind of like remember like we were obviously not English. We didn't speak English that well back then, right?
Yeah.
And the game was in English, so we had like no idea where to go and who to talk to. And then I remember that we did figure it out, and then we was like, oh my god, this game is actually good. I remember that. It's like we figured out what to do, and we would tell everyone, and then everyone got on board. But I remember like for quite a while, everyone was like, that game sucks. You're just like a shitty dicky scrub.
Yeah.
You can't do anything.
Most of the people I knew at the time liked Majora's Mask. I was like the odd one out, and I didn't hate it. I just thought it was really hard, and I The thing is, Ocarina of Time was really hard for me when I was a kid. In fact, funnily enough, I'm pretty sure I finished Majora's Mask before I finished Ocarina of Time in the end. I finished Wind Waker before I finished Ocarina of Time.
Jesus.
Yeah, when I was a kid, because, I mean, the internet existed, but I basically wasn't on the internet when I was a kid. So I was stuck in Jabu Jabu's belly for like several years, and I didn't realize there was one of the hanging tentacles you had to kill with the boomerang to get the tentacle things to go away. I was stuck on that for years, and then of course, after I finally figured that out, then I started going on the internet. I remember the very first time I actually went on the internet was to look up how to beat Dark Link in the Water Temple. Because I couldn't figure out if that was, and then that's when I discovered Zelda 2, and I'm like, oh, there's another Zelda game. Like I didn't realize, again, I didn't know there was like a series of Zelda games.
It's fun to think about. I remember that my friend told me about the Big Round Sword, and I was like, he was like really hyping it up. This was like one of those playground school rumors, right? It's like, oh, it's the best sword. You can kill everything in one hit. I wanted that sword, and I got the giant's knife, but I didn't understand like what a giant's knife was. I remember asking my brother, "What is it?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's it's a giant's knife." And I was like, "Wait, that's not the sword. Why did it break?" And I remember being extremely frustrated. So I actually didn't believe the big round sword was a thing until until Wind Waker came out. I thought it was like some I honestly thought it was bullshit that guy made up to like one of those schoolyard rumors. I did not believe it.
The funny
until until I figured it out. And until I figured it out later on, I was like, oh, I'm stupid.
The funny thing about Ocarina of Time is mine came with like the official guide, like written by the people that made the game, but the guide is written almost like a historical document. It's not exactly a walkthrough, so it didn't describe specific things you had to do, like that one tentacle in Jabu Jabu's belly. It didn't say like you have to go to this room. It just said Link had to. And then Link entered the depths of Jabu Jabu's belly and struck down the parasitic tentacle. Like, it almost read like you were reading a story. And there's one of the tentacles you destroy, but I didn't realize there was multiple ones and that were like color coded. The walkthrough didn't mention it. So basically, the walkthrough misled me for 3 years until I just randomly decided to play the game one day. And it was like, oh, there's this green tentacle here I have to kill. Why wasn't that in the book? And that was before the internet, so I couldn't. I mean, well, before I had the internet anyway, so I couldn't just look it up. Boomer Neffy. Anyway, I think we went way off topic, but we have almost 50 viewers. I think this is our largest audience.
Yeah.
It must be that. It must be that Rudo there is drawing people in.
Kind of. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, going back to Link finding Zelda in the forest.
Yeah. That's where Hyrule Conquest is basically going to start. So the player is introduced to, I guess, the Nephi canon version of Hyrule, I guess through Link's eyes, which probably... I kind of miss the kind of more historical perspective. I kind of like the fact that like all of Hyrule Conquest was like Midna stitching everything together from her studies, but I think I kind of wanted to do it through Link's eyes.
Yeah.
Or Link and... Well, no, it'll go to Ganondorf at some point too, so it won't just be through Link's eyes, I guess.
Yeah, but in the beginning, it's mainly Link, right? You're literally, starting as Link.
Yeah, so... you learn things through him. Like in the second level, which I'm more satisfied with the dialogue for that than the first one. You learn all about the Hylian religion from Rauru. That's like established to the player. Like that's another like. There's several regrets I've had with Hyrule Conquest. One of them is I never really portrayed the Hylian religion that much. Like, you kind of get a sense that there's a Hylian religion, but you don't really know anything about it. You don't really sing it in Hyrule Conquest, which I feel like was just a missed opportunity. But there's a little scene,
which is odd.
There's a little
mean,
scene which is the introduction of Raru, where
oh,
he's teaching a bunch of deacon. Wait, what? Hello. Oh crap! I think yeah we got buffers. Well, it might disconnect.
Yeah, you.
Let's see if it reconnects
You
or
cut out.
Let's see if it reconnects or it drops. I think we're gonna get disconnected. Crap. Guys in the chat, if you can hear us, let us know, because YouTube is now complaining that it's gonna disconnect. Again. Well, now it says reconnect.
It sounds like that.
Well, that's a bummer. We were going for like.
You mentioned.
Oh well, now it says it
you mentioned
reconnected.
religion and.
Yeah, I mentioned religion and the whole thing explodes. Although now it says they can hear again. Guys, if you can hear us, just say poodles. I still haven't yet, so they're not hearing me. Nope, they can't hear now. I'm seeing like it's fine, and then it's not, and then it's fine, and then it's not. Nope. No poodles. I think it's gone.
See. Why?
Well, we made it over an hour before it exploded. That was nice while it lasted. Yeah, I've already lost like a bunch of the audience. Someone pointed out it comes back in time for them to hear us.
I think every time it reconnects, you.
I like sigh when it reconnects. That's all they hear is me sighing at the internet, just freaking out. All right, well, I'll end this stream, I guess, and Oh, I'm seeing poodles. I think they're like 4 or 5 minutes behind us.
No,
they're really far behind us.
I think what's happening is that every time you reconnect, your connection freaks out again because I can hear it. Whenever when they hear us, your connection freaks out, and then we get, and then it starts buffering again.
I really do think they're like 5 minutes behind us, though. I only just now started seeing poodles, and I asked that a few minutes ago. So, I don't know. It's not complaining now, but I'm tempted to just restart the stream. Nope, now they're saying potato. All right, guys, I'll restart one more time. We made it an hour, so I'm fine with trying one more time. Yeah, there's too much of a delay. All right, so let me end the stream, and then we'll try part 2.